Okay, so we had a couple of questions. This is not my. Have any of my notes? Nice. Okay. All right. I know that we had one on the people card. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah. Did you highlight your notes in yellow, all of them?
I did, and
I see
huh?
that one, but I know we had several of them.
Yeah, we had a few more, and I don't. That's the most current one I have. Did I not save it? How do I not save something? Um. Okay, so let's just
So let's go through the cards and figure out what your questions are, and I'll answer them as best I
Okay,
can as we
I'm
go.
so yeah.
So so you don't
So,
have any questions on the registration card, is that correct?
let me think. Since I don't
I
know
don't.
that. I don't
I don't think we
think
did.
I don't think we did. Not on the registration card. But I do have a. Let me just ask a couple of overall questions just to make sure I understand how the account admin versus the super user works. I think Kirsten was explaining it to me. So the account admin is just a like a toggle button or something that the super user selects to.
No.
Okay,
So
yeah, how does that work? What's
Well,
that
yeah, it's a
differentiate?
link. I mislabeled it as a toggle, but it's a link.
okay. So what the super user has the ability to do everything in the interface on the external on the grant on the internal portal without going into the admin back panels, right?
Right, right.
The account ad that is everything except basically one thing, and that is the ability to change and provision users. So the
Okay.
account admin has access on the registration card to connect users into the system. Right? There's that one part on the registration card where you hit the connect button, and that
Right.
provisions the user. Also on the um, on the user card, there is um, there's the place where you assign roles and permissions. So basically, and give people access to the system, right? So
Right.
the account admin profile is configured so that it can give people access to the system. The super user profile is configured so that you can't adjust the roles and profiles.
Got you. So
But the underlying abilities on both of those cards across everything else is the same.
it's the same. Correct. And but they are distinct profiles. I mean,
Yes,
one is just okay. They are
yes, they
distinct
are
profiles.
distinct profiles um, because we wanted to basically limit the ability on the user card to be able to get into the profiles and roles section. So Kirsten is in as a are you on as an account administrator or as an admin
I
or as a
am
super
in
user? I
as
mean
an
as an
I,
admin, a system
maybe.
admin.
Oh yeah, system admin.
So your account, Kirsten's account is a system admin account, right? She basically has access to everything and can change anything.
Right.
The account admin is a profile, and that's the top one that she has in there, that gives her access to this section where there are profiles, where you can change the profile for the user, right? And then if you scroll down a little bit, and you can change the login for the user, you scroll down a little bit, Kirsten, you'll also see roles. So the account admin can adjust the roles on this people card. The super user profile doesn't see this roles section and doesn't see the profile section above, which means that they can't adjust their permissions.
I got you. Okay.
But an admin, like a system admin, overrides everything.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So could we look at Cheryl's record, maybe?
Yep.
Um, or we could look at Laquita's because she's going to be one of the super users.
Probably more of an account admin.
Right, right. So if I hit edit.
Yep. See, so we want to change that employee profile to account admin because we want her to be the account admin. So take employee profile off.
Oh, so take that one off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because once you're in, if you're in at a higher profile, I guess it doesn't make sense to have the lower profile in there, I guess.
If you're in as a higher profile, Kirsten right now, Kirsten has admin rights. It doesn't make sense for her to toggle out of her admin rights and apply other profiles. The only because she can do everything. On the account admin, I would say is a higher level than the super user because it also includes access to be able to assign privileges.
Right, gotcha. So what I was saying is, so really, like Laquita, who's also one of the SPO analysts, she might as well just be in there as the account admin because she'll be doing those account admin functions, but she can also still do her SPO analyst function.
Exactly.
Okay.
Under this role. Okay.
So then scroll down a little bit and let's look. That's the profile, Kirsten, not the role.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah. So she is in as a SPO analyst all programs in terms of the roles. And remember that the roles assign workflow buttons on various cards.
Right.
Right. So if you want her to be, and if you don't have any roles assigned or any, then you're not going to be able to edit that record.
Even if she was an account admin?
Well, if she's an account admin, she's going to get access to everything, so she can adjust whatever the heck she wants.
Okay, I got you. I see.
But like if you were an employee, if you don't have the role,
I got you.
If you don't have there's no employee role. There is an employee profile. There's a PL1, PL2, PL3 role, right? And those roles give you access to be able to edit things on the different cards.
Gotcha. Okay.
So let me just jump over here if it's okay.
Did you need to save that, Kirsten?
I'm sorry?
Did you need to save that? You just made a change on that card under Laquita.
Oh,
Did you need to save it?
Do you want me to go ahead and save it with the admin?
No, she's not. She's not
going to be an admin, account admin, so.
Okay. And Richard, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No, when I heard admin, so there's that role, admin role down below. You don't want to do that. Don't want to do that, Laquita. Okay, that's just you, Courtney, and the guys that are doing the API development.
Gotcha.
Except the announcement posting, they're going to have to do that.
If Laquita is doing the announcement posting, then yes, she would need to do that. She would need that admin role.
She would just do it at the time when she would. She doesn't want to obviously be in there all the time as a system admin, but when she wants to post an announcement, she just go add it, and then take
Um,
it back away? I mean, is that how it
I would
works?
I would say you could do it that way, but realistically, the areas are segmented off anyway, and she's going to spend most of
Okay.
her time in the front end. Um,
Okay.
so I would
So
just
it wouldn't matter.
add that privilege to her, add that role to her if that's the function that she's going to be playing, and
Okay.
just don't keep changing it because it'll just
I got you.
make for more
I got
confusion.
you. Okay.
Okay. All right.
But
So what I was
I
gonna.
would say that that should be you should have some documented controls around who you're providing admin access to, and you probably have some security paperwork from IT that would kind of cover that.
I got you. Yeah. Yeah. We have to have some internal rules around that. Yeah.
I am taking a note on that. Hold on. Okay. And I do remember our other question now, Richard. Or not Richard. I'm sorry, Knock. But let me before I go. I have a quick question. So, Knock, we had come up with this list the other day that had operations as the demand management, SPO, FP&A, and then the business support or BSP. What I don't know what that's for. And then the mission side is PO1, 2, and the PIPD. So these going back over, these are affected by the role that we have selected for them for the workflow, correct? I know I didn't say that right. Let me go
Yes,
back over here.
those are all roles in the system. So if you go down and you click on add role, add
Uh huh.
program role, you should see all of those. You click on the role, you should see
There
all
we
of those,
go.
right?
Uh huh.
And adding that role will allow that person to see the workflow buttons that are assigned to that role.
Okay.
I don't. You know, the one thing I don't recall seeing in any of the in that role ratio chart you sent. Maybe it was there somewhere. I missed it, but the role that's called grants associate and a grants manager. Um,
So those are two roles that are default in the system. Those are not
oh, okay.
roles that you're using.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so just like grantee and reviewer and president
Hmm.
are default roles in the system, if we start removing those, then what we end up doing is breaking the back end of
Gotcha.
Flux, and we don't want to
Gotcha.
do that. We've kind of worked
Okay.
around those.
I understand.
Just
Makes sense.
is it out of curiosity? Is there any way that we can
Reorder that? No.
yeah. Okay.
Is
I'm probably not
it in
the person to ask
alphabetical
that.
order? Oh, it's in alphabetical order, is it? Yeah, I think
No,
so.
it's not.
No, it's
Oh, it's
not.
not.
It should be one should go 1, 2, and it's. I think it's just the create date that defined it, defined the order, which is a little silly. I probably could remove all the. Well, don't want to do that. I could remove all those roles and recreate them again in order, but then I'd have to go back into all of the workflow forms and reassign the new buttons, reassign the new workflows to the new buttons because the data pointers would be off.
Wait, say that again. I mean, I missed the very first part of it.
Okay, so what I was going to say, in order to reorder those
Oh,
roles,
oh okay.
I would have
Okay,
to
yeah, never
I
mind.
would have to delete the roles in the admin panel. I'd have to delete the roles and then recreate them in order, and then
Mhm.
I would have to go on to the workflow, all of the workflows, and reassign um, roles to each of the workflow buttons because those roles would no longer exist. So
Okay,
the
yeah, we
old
don't want
roles
to do
would no
that.
longer exist. And because they're data driven, it's looking for a pointer rather than that role name, right? It's looking for a primary key.
Got it. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Um, so we'll just live with it. That's fine. Question now. Okay, so that I get that. The other question that we had, Knock, was just confirmation that super users, which profile, jump back over here, for the people card, which profile can provision accounts?
Account admin can provision accounts. So where you're at, I just say, yeah, type in provisions accounts.
I'm saving it after everything I do.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so the account admin, super users cannot provision accounts.
That's correct.
And the only thing that super users can really do that the
Actually, that's the
other,
only difference between the two. That's what Richard said.
That's exactly that. That is the only difference between the two.
One can't provision accounts, the other one can.
create and modify ad hoc, sending bulk emails, and access to budget cards. And then the super user with account admin privilege, and then can be granted system admin. Okay, I think that makes more sense. So yeah, because we were trying to figure out, and super user is a profile. Okay, that works. Oops, sorry. Back over here.
So super user also has access to all of the budget cards as well.
Right.
And they can edit those.
Yeah.
That's right.
You don't want them to, but they can.
Right.
Right. That's kind of a training issue. We just say don't do this.
Right.
Okay. The other question.
So
Go ahead.
employees don't have access to the budget cards, but can run ad hoc reports. The employee profile can.
Right.
Yes. Okay, that makes sense. And then depending on their role, they will see different parts of the workflow buttons
Yes.
to be able to do their
Yes.
activity. Now, is there anything else that the role drives? Not the profile, but the role drives.
The role is primarily driving workflow buttons, um, and you have to have a active role on that card at that state in order to edit that record if you're driving the record through workflow.
Okay, say that one more time.
So, for instance, a principal investigator does not have any active workflow changes in the system, right? They're not promoting things forward in workflow.
Okay.
So in order for them to edit the record, we added a provide input button.
Oh, that's what that's for then. Okay.
Right? So that way it allows them to, because that button, they need a role on that button. So basically that's the catch-all. It doesn't move them anywhere in terms of state, but it allows them to be able to edit the button, edit the record.
I mean, I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this, but I'd like to see an example of that. Maybe we can go through the questions first and then come back to that one.
Sure.
Yeah.
Save.
Okay.
I kind of
So
want to know what that really means, basically, in Flux.
Okay. Do you want to do that now? Who is someone that is going to be a PI?
That's anybody going after a grant. Like, frankly, it could be almost any, well, not an operational person, but almost anybody on the mission side. So you pick a name. Let's say like somebody in cancer control. Let's just say Dr. Winder. Well, he's kind of high up. Let's pick someone else. Let's say say Catherine Sharp.
Okay, here I know she's an employee in my former division. So.
Okay, all right.
So, oh, she is already a PIPD. and she's mission support. Now, what I don't understand, okay, the profile, what what profile do I give her? Is she a
I would say there's
mission
no
support,
PI.
right?
So the PIPD profile that was in there before, it's
Uh-huh.
kind of a legacy profile, right?
Okay, so we're not using those.
So we're not really using that.
Okay, so the only ones that we are using are these right here. So she would fall under mission support.
Yeah.
Employee, actually. We
Employee or
moved,
mission support?
I think we moved the PIPD up to employee, but although I got a question about that, along with the PLP1 too, but for this purposes, see how you moved it up, PIPD is up
So
employee?
it really depends on what you want that person to be able to see, right?
Right, and so, but anyway, I guess it depends on, I'm curious about this input thing too. Um, but I sort of have that was one of the questions we had in terms of what they can see, at least on the grant seeking side, they shouldn't be in any different position than the PL1, PL2.
So mission support does not have access to the budget cards,
Right?
no access to ad hoc reports, which is the same thing as the division.
And so should we want her to be employee because we would want her to be able to run ad hoc reports, right?
Yeah, but but that's where I have a question. But so if you want to do this example input thing, do it as like an employee. But I do have a follow-up question about.
Okay.
Okay, and
And
she's already
then
got,
principal investigator, all programs. Fine.
is that perfect? I mean, is that okay?
Yep,
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, so now can I emulate her?
Yes. So, and this is what you'll have to do in order to simulate her. You'll have to hit edit and then scroll down to her profile section. And there's no impersonate user. Probably because does she have an active account? Let me see. Scroll up a little bit. Sorry, Kirsten. She does not have a login.
Oh. Okay, can I just create a
Give her a login.
dummy
Yeah.
one? Do I need to
Cancer.
do a password?
You can whatever what I mean. Yes, add a password. Just use the same thing for the time being.
Okay,
Whatever.
great.
It's cool. Yes, hit save. Hit save, not cancel.
Yeah, it was saving.
Okay. Now edit and go down. Can you impersonate her now? Yes. Switch to this user. Okay, so click on the plus button. And hmm. Sorry, click on applications.
Okay, I wondered about that. Oh, that's right, because they're not. Okay.
So click on Spacely Sprockets for the time being. So right now she does not have any access to the program grant in pending negotiation. Right? So she can't edit it. So let's have
Otherwise,
a,
there'd be the edit button there.
there's no edit button, right?
Mhm.
If she can look at it, she can review it, but she can't actually edit the record. So let's have a look at a couple of others in different workflow states.
Because that's an application, and Yeah, so wouldn't she have to then be a PL1, PL2 to really do anything with that?
with that application.
I mean, to do any kind of workflow type stuff. Um, because we
Yes.
have as a
Yeah,
PIPD,
yeah. But you also
like
can't
PIPDs don't have any workflow roles,
exactly
right? Right, exactly.
right. So, but there were some records where we said, okay, well, at this point in the so see that input provided,
Okay,
right? You want them to be able to, and now you have the edit button.
I
So
see.
you could go in and edit it.
And you can say input provided, but you can't.
You would,
But it's not moving it in workflow. It's leaving it at the same workflow state.
But so, I mean, this is kind of weird though to me. Let's assume at the point we got just a bunch of records in the system. They just because they're not doing this by specific records. They can see all this stuff. They would have to know. I mean, I guess they'd have to know what they should be providing input on, because theoretically they could just provide input on anything.
In that, but only at that one, only at that workflow state, right? If it's on a
Right.
different, if it's at a different workflow stage in the workflow, then they can't provide any input.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is this particular request for proposal may have nothing to do with the work that this particular person is doing. Meaning that this is not one of their grants or one of their RFPs to be even providing any input on, even though there's a green button to provide input. Because we haven't segregated it like that,
Right.
right? I mean,
That's correct.
they can see stuff throughout the system. That input button would show up for records for which ordinarily they'd have no business providing any input on.
Right. So they wouldn't. Right.
Right,
I mean,
but yeah, so but
this
yeah,
is
you got to discipline people to, because they might think, oh, I can go look at this and provide some info. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, ordinarily that's how it should work. You're right. I see what you're saying, but because we're not separating out by the records that should go to you, people have to be trained to know that there are things for which if you don't
well.
have any business.
There's a couple of things, Knock. Right. So this person now has um, their own profile. They have their own. They've been provisioned in the system. Right.
Right.
They can create dashboards to drive the work that's related to them.
Actually, is there a way for what I would consider the normal, and let's say we're not really talking about global and change for right now. Leave them to the side. Let's say for the future PIPDs that come into the system, your average PIPD who just has a couple of different grants they're working on,
Mm-hmm.
and I know we kind of talked about this a little bit, but we never really went down this path. But the idea of potentially just locking down dashboards for those users, so they just work on the stuff that they should be working on.
So um, I would say that you could create a locked dashboard which would look just like this, right? Opportunities and applications, and you could have that locked dashboard pre-filtered to records that just pertain to that user, right? So maybe project lead, where program project lead equals my ID, say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Mm-hmm.
a filter that's going to get generated on a on a dashboard.
would we have to do that for each individual user then?
Well, so you could create a dashboard that was associated with a profile, right? And if you did that, then you'd have. So if you click on the dashboard where it says default at the top. See, right now you've got your default dashboard. You could apply a default dashboard to this, but since they can create their own dashboards, they can come in here and they can add a dashboard, right? And call it my work, and just hit enter or return, right? And now this is your dashboard, your work. You open up the things on the dashboard that you want,
Okay.
right? And you can filter this dashboard down to just your stuff.
Okay.
And
I
you
guess the question is
could
whether or not we want to control that for the average end user, or just let the average end user set up their own dashboards, or
I
kind of control what goes through what they, you know.
I would say you're going to have to let them. You're going to have let them have the ability to create their own. You can create a default dashboard, a default locked dashboard if you want to, and then apply it to that specific profile. But the problem there is then you have training issues, right? So then users need to know, well, if you want to add new cards to that locked dashboard, you've got to go to, you can't add lock cards to that lock dashboard. You have to create, if you need to create new records, like a new card or a new report, and you want to open up a new report on the dashboard, then you need to go to a new dashboard. So I think you're increasing the complexity of your training and the questions that come through it.
Mm. So
Could
let
we
me ask you
assign?
this. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, could we assign a step, like if we knew we needed to give that person an opportunity to provide feedback, could we assign that step to them and then limit? I don't know what I'm saying.
Um, so this basically goes back to the same conversation we had a while ago about like the like who has access to what parts of the workflow, right? And so yes, we can basically say, look, when we're in pending internal review, at that stage, anybody can provide it. Anybody, we can say anybody can provide input, or principal investigators, financial analysts can all provide input at that point in the workflow. But they're not providing input when it's in a draft. They're not providing input when it's initial review. They're not providing input when it's pending promotion or it's in award setup. But maybe they're providing input when it's granted.
Yeah, see, I was thinking about this a little differently, and I guess now that I'm starting to understand these roles, I was sort of viewing the PL1, PL2, the PLs,
Mm-hmm.
put it that way, as the grant making folks, so to speak, that have roles and input on the grant making side. The
Yeah.
PIPT is more of not even so much a role. They don't do any workflow, but whatever input they have is on the grant seeking side. But if they wanted to issue a grant, if it happened to be the same person, they'd almost have to have the role of the PL1 or PL2.
So hold on one second. So
Okay.
so you just said that the principal investigator, project director,
Mm-hmm.
is only on the grant seeking side. They have no roles. They have no input into the grants, whether they be RFPs or grant making grants on the grant making side.
Grant making side. Yes, with a caveat.
So the
In
caveat
general, yes.
the caveat blows it out the water, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess the question would be, this is really it. if they did need to have a role on the grant making side, could they just add the role of PL1 or PL2 at that point?
You could add, yeah, you could add, you could just provide that individual the role of PL1, PL2. But that would give them the ability to do all of the PL1, PL2 functions.
Right.
So then they would just go back. Oh, sorry, I'm
And to
sorry.
me, that's where, to the extent that they're going to have a role in grant, because see, for the most part, what ends up happening is PIPDs, they seek grants, they might issue subawards, but they don't actually do grant making. But in a few instances, like in our HPV grants, they kind of did a quasi, even with their subawards, they did a sort of a quasi RFP type process, which normally you don't do with subawards. And so I was wondering, in a case like that, could we just give them the role of PL1 or PL2 to go ahead and do their grant making? Normally those are just separate functions, you know.
So, but when you give them the role of PL1, PL2, you know that you're giving them the role, that role across all grant programs.
Right, and so, you know, no biggie, because I mean it would be, that's the case for anybody who's doing grant making, right? I mean, right. So I don't see what the problem would be doing that. Because that's, I mean, we got, like, again, beyond global and change, we got others who do grant making.
Right.
So even if we added that role to a PIPD, because really, again, I'm trying to think of a situation where a PIPD is only going to provide input, but they wouldn't control the grant making. They wouldn't be leading the grant making. They wouldn't. I'm trying to think of a situation where that would occur, and I can't off the top of my head. I'm thinking they would have to be a PL1, PL2, because if they're going to provide any input on grant making, it's because they're doing the grant making, you know.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm not sure they would just be providing input to someone else, and someone else is leading the grant making effort, you know.
So I think this goes back to your original swim lanes, the original swim lanes on the workflow diagrams, right? We specified this PIPD as having input in the process, but they never actually approved anything, and they only really came into the process at certain times. And so that's why we put the input provided, or provide input at those specific times where they may get involved in the process. Not saying that they have anything to do at that point, but that's kind of where that would be where they interact. If you want to elevate that person to the principal investigator, to the program lead at that point, that's not going to break anything. It's just going to adding the ability for them to take action on multiple grants at that point.
Right. Yeah. So
actually, at all points where that person can take those actions.
And so for any PL1, PL2, I guess, obviously there's an internal business process training issue to know. Obviously, they should only be taking action on their grants. Obviously, even though they can. You're saying literally they could take action on any of the grant-making grants.
Yeah.
But they'd have to know, really, they should only be focusing on, obviously,
focus on
you have the ability to take an action on another grant. You already should focus on your own.
Right.
I mean, change obviously shouldn't take action on global grants, even though they could.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to have to really discipline some folks to know, so they know what's theirs,
Well, I mean, there are and that's why kind of you have filters to filter down the work so that it's associated with your group, right? And that's why we also have that project component on the forms, so look, this is my project. I've been assigned as the project lead.
Right.
And if you change the project lead, you're going to change you're changing the assignment for that grant.
Right.
That person may still be associated with it, and they maybe still be, you know, active on that grant, but you may have changed. May have changed their association to that record, in which case they'd be performing different functions on that record.
I mean, it all makes sense in theory. I'm just wondering, and when we get this up and running, there's a lot of records in this system, how that's really going to work in practice. But anyway, I understand. So, the, I'm not, but truth be told, I'm not as concerned about on the grant making side. What I am, where my questions ultimately lead to is really on the grant seeking side, the opportunity card.
Okay.
And that's where we had a question about, can you filter the profiles down to the, because all of these cards come out of the requests, I guess.
Yep.
Can you filter the profiles down to the subcards? Because here's my issue with that. Given how this works on the grant making side, when you look at the grant seeking side, there's no role other than demand management and SPO. And I don't mind like FP&A looking at it and all that, but really demand management and SPO, really, they're the ones who do everything on those, all the way up through submitting the proposal and setting up the award.
Right.
There's nothing for those other roles to do, and to even see, to be perfectly honest, other than us communicating with them about our analysis and all of that.
So the principal investigator does not provide any input during the proposal? Because I thought that was one of the things that you talked about in the workflow.
They do, but not so much. Other than communicating with them, they don't. At least I didn't. Because remember, a while back we took out the whole thing about them building a proposal in Flux and all of that.
Right.
So other than some communication, there's nothing. It's sort of, as far as they're concerned, Flux happens in the background as we do the pro. I mean, they give us documents. If obviously they can give us documents. I imagine if we can find a way, I suppose they could upload some documents, or they could just give it to us and we upload them. But that view that they have and the ability to, and I don't know in terms of edit and all that other stuff. When you look at the roles, it's like if you're an employee, you can see, edit, update all the records, including on the opportunity card.
If you're an employee and you have PL1, PL2, you can view, edit, update the records.
Well, even the PIPD, because that's in the.
If you are PIPD and you are an employee, if you have the employee role and you have the PIPD, if you have the employee profile, you get to see the things that employees can see. If you have the PIPD role, you get to edit the things that the PIPD role can edit.
And I guess what I'm saying is, on the opportunity card, opportunity request, opportunity grant, whatever we're calling it, PL1, PL2, PIPD, they shouldn't be editing anything on that.
They don't have any workflow roles assigned on the buttons on the opportunity.
Right. But just because they don't have workflow but don't they still, according to your chart, don't they still have ability to edit stuff?
They can. So that you can only edit the records on the application card, right? That the roles have given you access to.
Right, but they have access to it. That's what I'm saying.
Pardon?
Well, let's go back to let's pull up the RACI chart.
Go back to the spreadsheet, Kirsten, please. Kirsten?
You there, Kirsten?
She ran away.
Is everyone else still on the phone? Is it just me and you talking, Rich?
Just us.
I'm here.
Okay. What happened to Kirsten?
She's saying something in the chat window.
Okay.
Be right back.
Okay. Well,
We could. Well, yeah. I guess if we can get to that ratio chart, we can kind of tease this out. But I can't. I guess she's having a problem. Oh, uh-oh.
I'm just taking over control of.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Give me 1 second to pull up the chart. I'll share. Hold on. Yeah, fine. What I need is wrong one. Stop doing that.
Right, the one with all the cards, yeah, where you had all the
Yeah. Open recent. This one. Right. So at the top we've got registration, application here. Right. We've got these roles, like this profile can see this card.
Gotcha. I understand. I'm not even worried about the account administrator super user. Let's focus on the employees.
Okay.
And
so
in particular, let's focus on PL1, PL2, and PIPD.
Okay. So employees can see the card, see the request card.
Right.
They can create new records on the request card.
Right.
They can view records on the request card. They can update records on the request card.
Right.
Right? In general. In general. That's going to be modified or qualified by their role. Right? So if you have PL1 or PL1 role, it means you can move, you have workflow actions for that role.
I understand that.
Right.
Is there a way to talk that, because I know there's several cards that come out of this request card, is there a way we can hone in on the opportunity request card? Is there a way to drill down what those roles can do on that particular card?
So we would have to then add a theme, add themes to here. So let's call it theme drift. Right. And the themes that we have are the opportunity. We have the program. We have the RFP, and we have the sub awards. Those are the 4 grant themes that we're dealing with.
And that program is really what will end up what we're going to talk about in the next hour is, I guess, the grant application.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I'm making grant applications are program grants.
Gotcha. I got you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So in terms of role assignment, the PL1, they have no ability to edit. So if you have, let's see, how would we do this? If you have access to, if this role is assigned to a workflow button on the the question, so these roles are assigned on specific states, right? Each of these workflows, each of these opportunities has different workflows. Each of these grant themes has a different workflow. And those workflows have different states. So the question is, if you have a if you have a workflow, so let's kind of walk through this one. The opportunity grant, the PL1 has no activities to perform on the opportunity grant.
Correct.
They do on the program grant. They do on the RFP, and they may do on the subawards. Is that right?
Uh,
No.
Not really. No.
Okay, so then let's just kind of leave it there, right? So
Okay.
generally, high level, that means that they're not going to be able to edit anything on the opportunity. They'll be able to see it, right? They can create new opportunities, create new requests, but they can't after it's done, they can't move anything, right?
What is that? Hold up. What does that mean? They can create a new request.
Anyone
An
can
opportunity.
anyone can come in and create a new request, right? After you started that, there's no way you can't do anything with it. You're going to train them and to say, no, you don't want to do that. But the list of grant types down here
Mm-hmm.
is not limit. You can't limit the list of grant types by the profile.
I see. Okay, so that could just be a training issue because
Yeah.
technically that starts
You
really
could
starts with
start
demand
it.
management or SPO. Yeah.
You could start an opportunity request, but you may not know what to do with it, right? If you
Yeah.
started putting in your grantee name, um, then you're not going to get the right information here, and it's not going to get moved forward. So you need to know in order to push it, in order to move it, that it's going to be American Cancer Society, right?
I got you. So let's not worry about that. So they can
Right.
do a request. What else? What else, as it stands right now, other than starting an opportunity, what else can they do internally as an employee role, employee profile on the opportunity card?
They're not. They can hit save, but that's about that. That would be it. They're not. They don't have any workflow um, activities associated with their. They don't have any workflow buttons. They're not associated with any workflow buttons.
Right.
So if we go into
So
workflow,
I understand that. That's good. I understand that, and that makes sense. I knew that part. They don't have any workflow. But I guess the question is, let's say demand management creates an opportunity.
okay.
They push it on the SPO to review. We're reviewing it. Is there anything that PL1, PL2, or the PIPD can edit on that opportunity?
So
Can they edit any records after it's been created and it's in the review stage?
so I think the simple answer is on the base information for the request itself. The answer is, after it's been saved, the answer is no. They're not going to be able to edit. Where there are things like these communication tools,
Mm-hmm.
they'll be able to add a communication. They'll be able to add an email. But that's just spawning a new card, right? It's just
Right.
they can add things to the records in that sense, but the base underlying record they can't adjust.
So let me ask you this: if you could drill down to the themes where they don't edit, there's no workflow for them, could you literally hide the card from them? I mean,
Um, no, you can't. You can't hide the card from them, right? Because you still get to the cards.
So they have to, by being in an employee profile, they have to have view access.
Yeah.
What if we? But I don't know if that would help. I guess what I'm saying is most of the stuff that's done on the opportunity card is really behind the scenes stuff. Other than them, like you said, it really should be us. We create a communication to send out to them. You know, they might give us a document to review. We upload it, but you know, because you said even they would even those other roles could see even when I forward something to the analyst to analyze and give me their comments on this. Those other roles can see that too. They're privy to that as well.
They can see the doc. They can see the link, right? But they're not
They
going
can
to.
scroll through the whole entire card and see everything that's happened on the card, right?
They can scroll through the card. They can see everything that's happening on the card. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they can't edit it.
Right. Yeah, they can't edit it, but I guess. Yeah. Anyway, we'll have to think about that one.
I have
I
a
don't know
suggestion.
the way. I don't know an issue around it though.
Real quick, can I interject? And I'm sorry I had to step away a little bit ago. Could we go back to the mission support profile, remove the opportunity card viewability, give them ad hoc access, and make all of the program staff mission support, and we could rename the employee one to operations?
One, we can't rename the employee one to operations.
Oh, right.
Because it's a default Flux.
Okay, no worries.
But
we could define it as our operations folks.
Sure.
Yeah, we could.
Sure. So if you want mission support to not be able to see, let's go back to these themes over here. I'm going to collapse this down a little bit. Come on. So let's split this here for a second. So we've got the request card. I'll make this a little bit smaller as well. You want mission support to not be able to view the opportunity grant theme, but they need to be able to see the RFP. Do they need to see the subawards?
Knock, did you say no, that they didn't need to see the subawards?
Knock?
Did y'all ask me something?
Yeah, did the mission folks need to see the subawards?
See them, yeah. I guess see them. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess to see them, yeah.
So we're talking about just theme-driven visibility at this point. So, mission support can not see the opportunity requests. They can see the program grants. They can see the RFPs, and they can see the subawards. Potentially what we're talking about doing is making, so mission support also does not have access to the ad hoc reports and the budget cards, right?
Which we could give them ad hoc report access, right?
We could give, yeah, we could. But then that makes that, yes, we can give them access to the ad hoc reports.
You can run ad hoc reports on something you can't see.
Say that again, I'm sorry?
Can you run ad hoc reports on something you can't see? I mean, I guess it won't matter because someone else is setting up the ad hoc reports for you. Like, for an example, let's say if you didn't have access to see what the opportunity card, but you wanted to know how many grants were submitted. A super user could set up an ad hoc report for you to run that report, even though you can't see that card that produces that data.
If you can't see the ad hoc reports, then you can't run the ad hoc reports. If you can see the ad hoc reports, you can. If you can see, you can see the right ad hoc reports, you can run them. If there are tables that or report themes that are invisible to you, and you run the ad hoc report, that won't be included in the ad hoc report that's generated. All ad hoc reports are loaded into the ad hoc reports card. So if an employee runs the ad hoc report that has access to the operations or to the opportunity grant request, it will be generated into the spreadsheet and it will be sitting in that
Oh, I see.
bin. And so if the mission support person goes in there and they see the other report that was generated by the employee, they'll still be able to see that report.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me ask this, and because this may help solve it. Maybe we don't, theoretically, there's a couple ways of dealing with it. One is the approach to find this workaround you're doing, or we could just know that, okay, we're going to be transparent. We're not going to put anything when we're doing our analysis and comments that we're worried about the PIPD seeing. We're not going to. So if they can view the card, we're not going to worry about it. But I guess this would be one question I have. But I still don't see a role for the PL1, PL2 on the grant seeking side. So I don't know why they would have visibility to that card.
So the PL1 and the PL2, there's no interaction to the opportunity grant.
Correct. Other than when they initially submit what used to be called the BOR, there's a document to create the request.
Hold on now.
At that point, they don't do anything with it other than we might ask them for some comments. But there's no role, I don't want to say role, there's no
Purpose.
reason they would need to have visibility to it.
So I'm just kind of going back to the wireframe because this
right,
is kind of
exactly. I'm glad you brought that up because then there's that connection between where the grant seeking and grant making connect.
Exactly. So if you're taking away the visibility into the opportunity grants, now you're losing traceability from where the money came from to where it's going and how it's being used.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right.
There's
And
no
this
way
is
around
high level, and then we're going to go down into the each of these individual grant
I
programs.
got you. Uh-huh.
Um,
I got you. I see. Okay. Well, okay. So but you're saying though, even if they have visibility, they really can't edit anything.
they can't edit
Um,
anything. They can't adjust the records because they don't have any workflow attributes
right.
on that card.
Exactly.
Um,
Okay. And
what
that
they
may not be a
what they
big
will
deal.
want to be able to do is they want to be able to link their announcement basically back to the opportunity.
Right. Right. Right.
And
Right.
they'll
Right.
any um, announcement or any requests that come out of that you want to basically be able to link those new requests back to the opportunity as well, right?
And, and what is given that it's the account administrator really operating as a system administrator who can post the announcement. What does that really mean for them to link the announcement back to the opportunity? What actually are they doing to do that?
So on the application cards themselves, let's get back to
Is that when they tie in the fund source or something?
um, no, in the opportunity grant itself, right? Let's fill up the applications, not the opportunity grants. On the let's look at space these brackets. On the program grant,
Mm-hmm.
um, down here we're linking to an opportunity,
I see.
right? And so the idea
Uh-huh.
is that you can type in here the opportunity name or the granted,
Whatever that is, right.
right?
Exactly.
So these are all the opportunity grants that have been created, right? And so right now these are going to have to get regenerated, but these are the opportunity grants that are created. You'd link
Right.
that back to the specific opportunity, and that way you
Right.
have traceability from where the money came from to where it's going.
And is the expectation that the PL1, PL2 folks are doing that? I mean, this is all one big long grant application card, so sometimes it's hard to tell what role is doing what on this application.
Um, I would say it's either going to be it's either be the PL1, PL2, or it would be the SPO analyst that's working with that group
I
to
got you.
help them make all these connections.
Right. Okay. I see.
Right? Because
Um,
somebody's putting in the Siebel IDs and like all these other data points in here as well, right?
right. 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 Right.
PL1,
Right.
PL2 maybe assigning new reports or report schedules.
Right. I see. Yeah, we'd have to think. So really, then, if they didn't have visibility to the card, SPO, in fact, would have to do that all those functions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and then it would also cause issues, right? Because you would have linked something on the card that they're not going to have access to,
I got you.
right?
Yeah.
So now you've got a record on here that
Right.
is going to show here, but if you click on that, then you're going to get an air break. You're going to get a message that looks something like this, right? It says, I
Right.
can't get to it now. I don't know what's going on,
I got you.
right? You
I
click
got you.
here and we go, well, I don't have access to read this record.
Right. Right.
And then you got people calling you saying, well, why am I getting error messages on the system?
I got you. So okay, so let's not worry about that. We'll know. We'll have to just think about how we do things internally on that card. So that's fine. Let's just assume they're all in there then.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
Under employee. If that's the case, then you might as well. Well, not the PL3 and 4, but you might as well move the business service partner up there as well, because in fact they actually will have.
So make the business service partner the same as the employee?
Correct.
Again, the only
Correct.
difference between the employee and the mission support is really in the ability to run ad hoc reports.
Right. And so, if we're going to have transparency with PL1, PL2, and PIPD, then no sense in segregating out the business service partners.
Okay.
You might as well just move that all up in there.
Okay. So are we leaving missions? Are we leaving divisions PL3 and 4 where they're at in their own profile?
Well, put it this way, I wouldn't even call that division. Here's the issue: the divisions, when they're giving out their own grant, they may be in a PL1, PL2, or when they're going after grant, they may be a PIPD.
Okay.
And now that I'm thinking about it, if we're going to have this kind of setup, is there really a need? Well, no, I guess there is. I'm really trying to think about the distinction between PIPD and PL1, PL2 now. I'm trying to think though. I know PL1, PL2 is primarily for purposes of workflow on the grant making piece.
Right.
But if they have visibility to the opportunity with no more or no less workflow than the PIPD, then yeah. Well, the only reason may be because you might have PIPDs who don't do grant making, and there's no sense in giving them that PL1, PL2. So maybe there's still a need to have a separate PIPD. So we got it in there.
You got okay. So then if you stick with the principal investigator, basically just being able to provide input,
right,
on the records, on the grant making records at that point, do you?
Well, ironically,
is there a great difference between the business service partner and the PIPD?
Yeah, the difference is the business service partner generally provides support across the board to different departments. And in general, they provide support to the PIPD, but potentially they could do it on the grant making side too.
So the business service partner.
That's not really the issue. Is not so much the distinction between the business service partner and PIPD, because there is a distinction. The business service partner also has some functionality, sort of like demand management as well. The real issue I'm trying to distinguish is the PIPD from the PL1 and PL2. That's what I was really getting at. The need to have a difference.
So would you do that on an individual basis, based on what somebody wants to be able to accomplish in the system?
Correct. Yes.
And so
that's why
if we just leave the provide input, if we just leave the button with provides input there, right?
Right.
And that provides input button is on the program grants and the opportunity grants.
Maybe that'll be the PIPD role. And then if they need to do grant
making, if they need to actually run the grant through, then you would elevate them to a PL1 or 2.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense in my mind to keep those roles. Back to the divisions, though. I was saying the sort of confusing part is that we're calling that role a division when in fact division representatives themselves might be in a PL1, PL2. In some sense, the PL3 and PL4 is just a specialized support role primarily for change. I suspect
it's really a change. It's a delegated change role, right?
Correct.
So you're basically saying, hey, listen, you change associated employee, you're going to be working with the grantee as a stakeholder
Exactly.
in their application process.
So I wonder if we should call it something else, so that we recognize that the divisions can be in a different role. They could be in PL1, PL2, but this is just, it just so happens that this is some type of delegated stakeholder role, to provide support on the applications.
So
And whether it's a division person or someone else,
is it could you look at it as a kind of a collaborator, like a grantee collaborator role?
Sort of, although I wouldn't want them to think that that's somebody on the outside. Obviously, it's somebody on the inside.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah, I don't know the best term for it, but I do know calling it the division, it would add confusion, given that the division employees, we see them all the time. They're doing their own grant making.
Right.
So they're going to be in a PL1, PL2, and then some are also going to be in a PIPD role. So we wouldn't want to come up with another name for that specialized delegated role. And I don't know, we come up with something as a placeholder for now, but
Hold on.
So is this a new role?
it's just a change in name, really.
Changing the name of it to something that
that doesn't cause confusion. That really more clearly identifies what it's being used for. Because
right.
to call it a division makes it seem like the divisions would only have that PL3, PL4 role, and that's really not going to be the case.
It's a representative role, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What if you looked up collaborator?
You got some neat little tricks here, Richard.
Henchman.
Henchman. I like it. you think you got problems with communication now? Woo! Henchman.
Wow, those aren't very good.
Maybe delegated collaborator or something like that.
Confederate?
Or really mission support. I mean, it's supporting the other folks who are doing the mission work. I mean, maybe there are others who want somebody to help them out on something in some limited role. So, I wonder if we should call them mission support.
Is it a confidant?
Input provider. I don't know if that's not really.
I mean, why not call them? I mean, since we're moving the business service partner up to employee, why not call that role mission support, since they don't have full access?
Just call the
PL3 and PL, because that's, in some sense, that's what they're doing. They're providing support to those lead entities who are carrying out the mission. And whoever it came, we know for the most part, to the extent that it continues this way, it's a specialized role that Change is using, is working with the divisions on. But maybe others might have a need for some support functions that the PL3 and PL4 can do.
So that we do this. And just span it across all three.
Right.
So
well, no, I was saying, I think you got to move the business service partner up to employee now, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the PIPD becomes mission support then?
No, they stay on the
Or they
employee.
say employee as well?
Yeah, we said we're not going to bother with the workaround. We're going to have the transparency,
Good.
and Richard said that they can only see stuff. They can't on the opportunity card. They can't do anything. They can't edit nothing. They can't. He is going to have some input buttons, but they can't edit anything. They can just see it for visibility, and then we'll know when we're doing our analysis how to. We're not going to put anything in there we wouldn't want them to see. If we have something we need to say that we don't need them to see, we won't say it in flux. You know.
So does this make sense? You're going to take this business service partner and you're going to push them up into employee.
Correct.
And you're going to make this group here, just call them mission support.
Correct.
And we know that they have a little bit less rights and visibility into the system than employees do, than regular employees do.
Correct.
And they don't have access to the PL2 preliminary review comments.
Right.
On the request card, right? Because change is kind of has some specified business rules on what they can see during that part of the process, and it kind of makes sense because they're collaborating with the grantee at this point.
Right. Let me ask you: do they? We know none of those folks have obviously access to the budget cards, but what if the PL3, PL4, they don't have access to the ad hoc reports. There'd be no need for that level to run any ad hoc reports. So that's
so they don't so this level does not have access to the ad hoc reports, and this level does not have access to the budget cards.
Right.
Or the funding card.
Correct. Neither do the employees, so that doesn't matter.
Neither do the employees, although that probably needs to be say verified. It probably just needs to be we need to make sure that that's the way that it's configured right now.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that's on you.
Thanks, Knock.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you. Let me ask you a quick question though. Would I let's say me as SPO official, if I wanted access to the budget card, I would then need to add a role like finance to my role.
If you wanted access to the budget card, no, you have super user.
Oh, okay. I'm already up there somewhere. Okay.
Right.
Super users has access to the budget cards, right?
Super users have access to everything. Yes.
Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. Great. Right. So we created that finance role
we
primarily,
might want
I
to
guess.
basically move that around a little bit, right? And say, okay, the SPO analyst and the SPO officials aren't in the employee profile; they're in the super user profile.
I got you. Right.
Right. Does that make more sense?
That makes more sense.
That
Right. You might as well do that. Exactly. That makes more sense.
Because it is a profile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
While you're doing that, does it? I know that the SPO analyst may do some things that the SPO official does, and vice versa. If you guys are covering for each other or what have you, does it make sense to still have two different roles for that, or should we just call it the SPO role or something?
No, they don't. Well, still, I guess there's still some things that I can do that they can't do. Although, I guess as super users, I guess in some sense you're right. I guess if they want to do it.
For the most part, Knock, you said you wanted them to be able to do everything you could in case they had to step in.
That's true. You're right. You're right. And they know when to do it. So you're right. There really is a distinction. It's just SPO, Especially if we're all going to be the super user / account administrator, Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so let's delete those two. So that's kind of what we're looking like. The DM analyst is an employee. PL1 and PL2 are employees. The PIPD is an employee. Business service partner is an employee. SPO analyst. This is all roles.
I would take that out.
It doesn't make any. I don't know what that is. Oh, right. Super user is just super user.
But we don't have anybody in that role per se, right? Because we'll assign a further additional role.
That's why he had all roles, so we can assign them roles.
Yeah, because you get everything. Super user gets everything. So basically, so does SPO official and SPO analyst.
Right, because
So if
remember,
we
he
were
said
working,
the main difference is that the account admins can provision accounts, and then add a system account to their profile in order to post the announcements.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the main difference.
So what we could really do is just delete this all roles.
yeah.
Because you know that that's not a role. It's just the super users are. Oh, I did it the wrong way. Like that. Super users are SPO analyst and SPO official. They have all roles. There are no others. Unless, and are there anybody else that's going to be assigned super user privileges or assigned to the super user profile?
That's yet to be determined, but put it this way: if they did, they would fall under SPO.
What about
somebody like
Nosheen?
somebody that wants, or Kim, or somebody that wants to create ad hoc reports?
Right. So again, it'd be a central role. So if Kim was going to do it, she would have to fall up under SPO. So I don't know what her title might be, but it would be under the umbrella of SPO. So we could assign that later. Now the only other person that might want, although she hasn't been in the system yet, but she just might want that access would be Gail.
To create ad hoc reports?
Well, I don't know. She just may want that super access, put it that way. But I'll ask her. Again, given she's, I don't think she's going to want to know that much about the system.
Individual level, because you can basically say, okay, Gail, I'm going to give you super user profile, and you're still going to be the DM official. Because the DM
exactly.
is just the workflow buttons that get associated with you.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. The we can, we may assign one or two other people to that, but technically they're going to be under that SPO umbrella if we do that.
Okay.
Let me ask you a quick question. So Kim, right now, what would her role be? Is she
Right now she works with CHI, and so she's probably going to be a PL2 for right now.
Okay. So if she needed to be able to have the ability to run or create ad hoc reports, we could keep her as an employee PL2, but then also give her the profile of super user so she could switch to that if she needed to.
What I would do is I would just change her profile from employee to super user and just leave it as PL2.
Yeah.
Like
so
permanently or just as a toggle?
Permanently, if she's going to be doing it. And that's why I'm saying that role will be, given all the rights that role has, it's going to fall under the umbrella. It's going to be a central role that SPO would manage. And so we'll have to determine who we assign to that role.
SPO's gonna determine who goes in which profile and which roles go where, right?
Exactly.
In terms of like, you're gonna get this and you're gonna get that, period.
Right.
And that's why you got the account admin process.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Right. So, but in terms of individuals' business needs to get stuff done, if Kim needs to be a super user with PL2 roles, that just gets documented in her account privileges setup.
Right.
Right. You have to have some kind of log that basically says, look, this is what we want this person to be able to do. And the way to accomplish that is super user PL2. This is what we want this person to do. The way to accomplish that is employee PL1.
Yeah. So we'll right. So some of those things are still being worked out, but now that we understand the roles and profiles, this is great.
Okay.
Yep.
So I will. So you are comfortable with this list of profiles.
Yes.
Um, the roles have not changed. The assignment of who's getting which combination of profile and role, you're going to handle that as part of your account provisioning on the ACS
Correct.
side.
Correct.
We're not going to worry about visibility options for specific grant themes because that
Correct.
could get us in trouble with well,
Yeah. Some
basically
link.
not being
Yeah.
able
Yeah.
you people need to be able to see all of the requests, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the profile, the roles determine whether or not people can take any actions on those requests.
Correct.
The PIPD and business service partner and financial analyst, um, in terms of their work, in terms of the roles on the workflow buttons, are we okay with them having? Are we still okay with them having using the provide input button
Yeah.
on the various?
That's perfect.
Okay,
Yep. Perfect. All three of those. Yep.
okay. And are there a specific set of mid-state processes that we want that to occur at?
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I got to think through. Um,
So,
particularly on the opportunity
so right
side.
now, I think the way that it's set, like this part of the process, this
Uh huh.
opportunity capture, they're not involved in that, right? Um, they they may have provide input during the proposal section
Right.
of the workflow, right? So
Right.
when you're in the proposal workflow, there are a couple of provide input buttons.
Okay. All
Um,
right.
when they're in award setup, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but I think there's a couple of I think there's a provide input button during award setup because they may have some insight into how this grant is getting set up if they're going to manage it.
Okay.
On the grant making side, um, the provide input buttons are going to be around um, the uh, review and assessment or
Good.
determination, but not in contract negotiation.
Right.
Right in this midsection right here, review, assessment, determination. They may have there may be a provide input button for for the for the PI for those three roles.
Okay.
And then afterwards, once we get into the grant making or the monitoring and reporting, um, there's no additional adjustments that they're doing there. Although they might want to add you might want to add the ability for the principal investigator project director to add grant adjustments or amendments because you may have assigned those awards over there at that point.
Well, at least to make the request for them. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think we want them to actually add them into
Right.
the system on their own, but to make the request to make an adjustment.
So
Yeah.
they can make the request for an adjustment,
And provide input maybe on the.
but you don't want them to have create amendments ability.
I guess I have to know what does that really mean to create it as opposed to request it. What's the difference?
So to create a grant adjustment request,
Mm-hmm.
basically you're just initiating that on the request card on the grant adjustment card, and it's basically allowing you to start the workflow for
Right. This is what I want to do.
we think this
Yeah.
needs an adjustment.
Right.
Create the amendment is done in a different place, and that's going to be done on the granted award. There it is. Right? So there's an amend button here. You would not want this amendment button to show up if that is if the um, on the profile for, so you could take this off of the employee profile, but you couldn't take it off for the PIPD. Okay, so that button can be removed for this. It's not. It can be removed for the. I think it should stay there for the employees, but you can't remove it from the workflow buttons. It's not a
Right.
workflow button. It's a card adjustment button.
Right. So So that just allows them. They click amend.
That
Is
change.
that almost like a request? They want to do an amendment. So
It's adjusting the period of performance or the start and end date to the grant. Right. So either it's a new start date, new end date, or an amount of money that's changing on the grant on that
right.
specific grant.
Yeah, we don't want them to just do that on their own. Put it that way.
Who?
So, well, the PIPD or frankly anyone else for that
So the
matter.
issue there is that we put the PIPD into a single profile with the employees.
Right. I understand that. So
You can,
in a way in which even if they hit that amend, that
you can constrict the ability to add the request amendment by the profile, but not by the role.
I got you. I understand that.
Okay.
I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make that amend button for the employees more of a almost a request. I want to amend my grant like this. I just don't want them to be able to go ahead and do it on their own without us having visibility at the time it's happening and to approve it because it has implications, you know. But if it was more of a request or it pushed the workflow to SPO to have to act on it, then that would be fine, you know.
There's no tie between the grant request and the amendment card and the amendment button itself. They're two different things, and
I understand
they're
that.
not linked. I think you can do that through the easiest way to accomplish that knock is going to be through training, right? Because the other way to do that is say, okay, well, we're going to need to have a separate profile for PIPD business service partner that doesn't have access to the request amendment button.
Well, I'm not even as concerned about the business service partner financial analyst. I'm more concerned about the PIPD on their own amending the grant, and then that changes the dates and all that other stuff and adding money to it. And they just do it on their own and without it.
Without consult. So who would you want to create the amendment? Is it SPO?
Yes.
Okay, so then we'll remove the request amendment button from the employee profile.
Okay.
And the PL1, PL2, demand management official, and demand management analyst, PIPD, business service partner won't have access to the request amendment button. They'll have access to the grant request button in the grant request form. SPO analyst will have access, or super user will have access to the
to do the actual amendments.
To the amendment button. And you could basically say that the either the SPO analyst will take care of doing the actual amendment,
right?
Or you can delegate it out to a Kim who would be a super user with a PL2, but because she has a super user profile, she would be able to see the request amendment button. or the
I
amendment.
got you. Right. Gotcha. Makes sense. Let's do that.
Okay, so the decision then is to remove the request amendment button from the employee profile.
Correct.
Okay, but leave it there for the super user profile.
Correct.
Do you want to leave it there for the finance profile?
Sure, because that's going to be a limited. Yeah, that'd be fine. I mean, I don't know why they would really need to do it, but just in case we had somebody we need in that role, we know that's a limited profile role, and we can control who's in that role. So I don't have a problem if it stays for them.
Okay.
Say that part again. Where are you keeping? Are you keeping it an employee then, or
No.
No,
finance?
we're removing the amendment button, this amendment button, from the employee profile.
Right. The part after that, what you said, I didn't catch.
We talked
Oh,
about
he's going to add it. He's going to keep it
adding
with the finance.
the finance person.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, let me ask a quick question. So if we end up giving someone like Kim or someone else super user access to write ad hoc reports, is that going to screw anything up? Because then they'll end up having access to that amendment button.
They will have access to the amendment button. It's physically it's not going to screw anything up, but it may be a training issue on when you hand that over that.
Again, Kirsten,
Profile.
I think we're going to control that through an internal process that, in effect, whoever we delegate this super user to, really they're going to some degree, fall under the control of SPO. So we're going to try and make that a central role, basically.
Okay, so I'm not going to worry about these. But we're going to remove okay, and we said we're going to add okay. We're going to have mission support, finance, employee, super user, reviewer, and grantee. And we're good with this section. Green for good.
And you know how now to apply that to the rest of the cards, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'll just take this. I'll take this. I will apply that above to all of these other sections.
Right. Gotcha.
But I don't think it really, I mean, this is really where the meat is, right? On the request.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
The rest of these are.
So the other stuff is kind of defined. You're right. Like when you get down to the ad hoc report, you kind of define that anyway, and so.
And then for the budget, who will have access to EPO?
Yeah, you do have to adjust that though. Yeah, that card. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do we want people to be able to see amendments?
Oh, they can see them. We just don't want them to be able to create them.
So no, no,
or update them. I mean, they can view them.
Can't update them either.
Right. Oops. Oh, that's a different card. Okay.
Budget cards.
I was gonna say,
Budget
hope you
cards.
didn't.
Uh, and again, I don't think we're going to need to use the. I don't. Yeah. So um, we do want the employees to view the ad hoc reports. Mission support, we don't, right? So they're
Right.
not going to be able to view. Is that right, Knock?
Right. They're not going to be able to view. Right. Correct. Ad hoc. Correct. Correct.
Okay. Finance, they're not going to be able to update the reports. They can view them and run them. They can't create them.
That's correct.
Okay. Um, documents are pretty much wide open. Emails are pretty much wide open. Reports are wide open. Amendments get adjusted.
And we can still password any documents we want to
Yes.
protect that might have other kinds of budget information in them,
Yep.
salary or whatever. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Payments are straightforward. Um, reviews we've already gone over. Requests are now set. Announcements. Um, so on the announcements, the sysadmin has to publish them, obviously, right? Everybody can review and update, but based on having even mission support has
Yes.
or division mission support has access to edit or update the announcements
Right. So now, is that before they're published or after they're
before
published?
they're published.
Okay, gotcha.
They
Yeah.
need to be able to collab. The change wanted to be able to collaborate with the divisions on the creation of the announcement.
And that's fine. That's fine.
Um,
So it seems like you, even though you got the, to create, view, update, all that stuff straight. I mean, I guess for consistency purposes, you gotta, since we cleaned up the request cards, it seems like you have to clean up these other cards,
I
put
do.
people in the right.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do right after this meeting.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha.
Is clean this up so it's all consistent, and then I'll send it
Yeah.
back to the group.
Okay,
Um,
perfect.
Can I ask one quick question about the budget report or the budget cards?
sure.
Who is it that will be able to edit the budget cards then? Will that be super user only? What about finance?
That is a very good question. Um, funding sources, I've got just super user and finance. That's seeing cards and editing and updating them. Budget cards or program cards, I've got account admins or super user and also finance. Is that still good?
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay. And then those are the level activity code, grant agreement code, fund code. It's just those super user and finance being able to get to those. Does that all make sense to you, Knock? So I'm guessing what you'll have to do is create a mapping for um, for what you want to assign individuals to on the in the system.
Right. Correct. We'll do that. That's fine. Once you send this back to us, we have this as our reference document.
Mhm.
Then we can do yeah that'll be easy.
So I don't think we've made any changes. Mission support. The division is now gone away. So I will just strike this through.
Right. In effect, that becomes mission support. I don't know if you want to, maybe you just want to change division to mission support, and really mission support goes away. Or is it the other way around? I don't know.
Well, division goes away, mission support.
Is that PL 3 and 4 now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm good.
Yeah, can you go back to the resources? I mean requests real quick.
Yeah, sure.
One more.
Right here.
Would it also make sense to remove under account admin, um, instead of putting SPO analyst, I wonder if it would make more sense to just put select or something like that.
To put what?
Select people. I mean, because it's not necessarily all SPO analysts.
Why not just put SPO?
Yeah, you could. I mean, I don't know.
Then we'll, right. Um, and then
SPO assignment.
exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And then one final question that I had, I think that I was missing this key thing here. So we can assign certain permissions at the profile level, but then we can also assign additional permissions at the card level, and then also at the role level. Is that right?
So yes, that's kind of right. You have the ability to assign um, visibility settings. You assign permissions at the profile level, right?
Okay.
On the cards themselves, when you're building out the forms, you can assign visibility settings on the form itself to either the profile or the role. But that's a building issue, and basically you need to make sure that we have the roles very well established in terms of who does what and who has access to what in order if you start down that path.
Mhm.
And then you can create in terms of the profiles, I'm sorry, in terms of the roles are associated directly with workflow actions. And in order to have the workflow action, in order for you to edit records, you have to have some workflow action assigned at that state, unless you have no workflow.
So really, what you have highlighted here, where it has yes for C card, create yes, view yes, for the employee level, that is going to change at the budget level because they're not even going to see those cards. So that is an instance of where you would change the visibility based on the profile and or role for the cards.
Yeah. So if we just kind of look at the budget card itself, the employee profile is not going to be able to see the budget card, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, create view access, that all becomes a moot point because they can't see the card just to begin with.
Okay.
Hey guys, I know we're still going through this, but just wanted everybody to kind of be mindful that although I moved the time back, we're still at 12 o'clock. So unless anyone has any conflicts, we would still be using this 12 to 1 hour because in looking at the schedules, it looks like people have conflicts after that.
Let me ask you that question, because then I got meetings almost going all the way through. I was going to try and grab some lunch. But let me ask you this. I got a meeting from 2:30 to 4 that I can really adjust. Does anybody have any free time then? For the application? That hopefully won't take that long?
I mean, I'm
Richard.
open.
I've got a bunch of craziness all over
your
the
calendar.
But
Really,
yeah,
anytime between 2:30 and 4:30. You got any time?
I can adjust and put some stuff on here. All right.
3 to 4.
3 to 4.
That'll work for me, Bobby. Just
perfect.
Let's just make it, and I will adjust my calendar to get to make.
So are we moving it to 3 to 4 now?
The application.
Is that what I heard?
Does that work for you?
That's to go over the application itself, right? The combined application.
Yeah. Right, and we saw, obviously you must have been making some adjustments. We were looking at it, and we saw some stuff changing, so it was actually looking pretty good. We just had a few questions, but I know how these meetings, a few questions will turn into an hour, so I think we might as well just dedicate another hour.
I totally agree, Knock.
So, excuse me. So let me ask, because I have been multitasking. With Richard, with the changes that you and I have been discussing, I saw you were putting some notes. I assume you're not making them on the fly?
Yeah, I'm not making any changes on the fly. All changes are going to go to you. I'm going to make changes in this document and then send this document back around so that we have approval. So, and then we'll make changes.
Granted, but by just from what you've seen, do these look like major changes?
We're not really changing. No, we're not really changing the profiles around. We're not. The roles are the same, right? The roles haven't changed. The renaming the division profile to mission support is not a there's not really much of a change there, as long as we're not modifying the division support or the division actions on the forms. I think that's fine. We've moved around the PD and the business service partner from having their own profile into the employee profile. So that's really just removing removing profiles from the systems, or making basically some of the profiles just legacy, and then that's an assignment that's going to happen on your side, right? When you go to provision the users. So it's so far there hasn't been a lot of form adjustments or profile adjustments. It's just kind of aligning the profile with the business function, and you'll be doing that, basically mapping on your side. What I need to do at this point is just go through this document and get it all straightened up so that it's consistent. In terms of the removing the admin buttons and removing the admin button or the amendment button from the employee card and adding it to the finance, that's a relatively painless exercise, but it needs to be done at the profile level and then tested. So that may take a little bit of effort. But,
What was that you said may take a little bit of effort?
Removing the amendment button from the employee card and adding it to the finance card. Right? So removing this button, amend from the employee view profile, and adding it to the finance view. And I think I have to still create the finance view.
Yeah, because we just did that this week.
Yeah.
Do you kind of know how long that might take?
To create a profile?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, off the top of my head, I'll take a day to create it and test it.
Okay.
Maybe another day to test it out properly. Make sure everything's fine.
So 2 days, maybe?
Something like that, yeah. It's pie in the sky, like, I think it's going to be.
Okay.
Big as a breadbasket, et cetera, et cetera. The bigger thing is really like when we start trying to test all of these, like testing it's gonna is documenting it all is one thing, and then like making the changes is another bit, and then testing it out and making sure everything is functioning. That also needs to get there. So first we need to document. Let's get that down, and then once we get acknowledgement and approval, then we'll move into making the changes, and then we'll need to adjust the test scripts to verify stuff's working properly. And then we need to brief it back to ACS and make sure that you guys are in agreement that it's doing what it's supposed to do. And then we can go to so we need to we'll need to do some unit testing on this as well once it's all complete, right?
Yeah, and we'll need to come up with a way on our end, NOC, to identify who is in what role from an ACS perspective.
Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, that really won't be that difficult, to be perfectly honest. So,
Okay.
but yeah, we'll sit down and do that.
All right.
Does Richard need that information first?
I'm sorry?
Do you need that information first?
No, I need to.
He doesn't need it because we can
spreadsheet.
Right, we can provision them in. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I've moved the meeting.
So the application meeting 3 to 4. Okay. Sounds good.
All right, guys.
Appreciate it, Richard.
All right.
I'll adjust this and I'll
Thank
get
you.
it out as soon as I can. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.